Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and it is torrential raining Eurovision entries, ladies and gentlemen. We have, what, 4 to get through today, and then another 5 tomorrow, and goodness knows how many I can't even speak, there's so much Eurovision happening. It's in the air, it's real, folks. We nearly have all 41 of this year's entries, which is wild, because like a week ago we only had half of them, so you can imagine how run off my feet I am. But I digress. Today, well, amongst others, we're talking about Switzerland, whose music video, after quite a bit of hype, finally premiered yesterday, and, yeah, not much more to say other than I feel like some fan theories were confirmed when they announced that the artist representing Switzerland this year is one Luca Hänni, which feels weird coming out of my non-natively German-speaking mouth, but still. Luca Hänni and the song She Got Me, although it sounds like the title was originally Dirty Dancing and they've had to change it for legal reasons. I don't know, they never specified. Anyway, it's in English. Music and lyrics by Laurel Barker, my favourite person in the world, Mac Fraser, Luca Hänni himself, and John and Lucas Haldin, their father and son, and that's literally the extent of my knowledge there. But yeah, so Switzerland's taken a bit of a different approach this year, so how about we dive straight into the review and see what I can make of that change, huh? God, that was an awful introduction, but whatever. Let's get right on into things. Switzerland is another one of those countries who's been unexpectedly quiet this year. Like, they're usually one of the first to get their selection out of the way and then wait until the end of the season and then smack us all upside the head with a revamp like they did last year. But this year, it seems like they're just cutting out the middleman and just jumping straight to the good stuff. And I'm conflicted, to be honest. I like this song, but if I don't word my thoughts very, very, very carefully, people are going to accuse me of playing favourites against Cyprus, because let's face it, this song is another product of Fuego's successes. Though, to its credit, this one is only inspired by Fuego's style, as opposed to literally trying to duplicate it. Either way, though, this one is going to end up going toe-to-toe with Cyprus, and if they both qualify, I suspect they're both going to suffer for it a little bit, because they'll both be stealing each other's points, because the same people are going to like both, I'm sure. As it is, though, it looks like this one has polarised opinions somewhat, which I didn't see that coming, but, well, let's just get into why people feel the way they do. You know, I actually saw a brief interview with the team behind this song, which gave me a fair bit of insight into the writing process and the thoughts behind it and everything, and some of the things they said actually confirmed a thought that I'd had, that the lyrics of this song do actually have a solid and compelling narrative to them. Instead of just being human mouth noise for the sake of it, as is customary in this genre of song, there is actually a purpose to what's being sung. In this case, it's to tell a cohesive, consistent, coherent story about a woman who really brings the party. Kesha. Experience tells me they're talking about Kesha. He's singing about Kesha, folks. The party don't start till she walks in. I like the consistency of that, in any case. As befits a story like that, though, the song is incredibly danceable. Like, pop this on, and in the right setting, most people would be more than willing to bust a mean groove to it, or whatever you cool kids say and do nowadays. It's a song about dancing at a party, so it brings the party, and now you're encouraged to bring the dancing in response. Again, typical of the genre, but they do it justice. That kind of appeal is just one facet among many of what makes this song internationally marketable too. Now, note, much like with Cyprus, I'm not praising this song's capacity to make the big bucks or anything, but rather, I'm praising that it would fit right in with the international charts and what is currently popular with the masses, and not just in the confines of Eurovision, meaning that it's ideal for being shared to a wide audience in a manner similar to the way Finland appeals this year. A lot of people are going to like parts of it for different reasons. This song belongs on the radio, where it can work to very great effect. It can find its audience, and its audience is rather large. And finally, I do kind of have to praise the structure of this song at least a little bit, because it's not homogeneous, but rather there is variety throughout from beginning to end, as opposed to being one big reggaeton soup. Instead of being such a constant slop of the same texture from start to finish, we have clean-cut sections that don't feel chunkable. If that's a new term to you, then I recommend watching my review of Belarus 2017, but I digress. The verses, the pre-chorus thing with the pauses, you know, she let her body talk, she make the party stop, parts like that. The refrain itself, the dance hook, and the final minute, it doesn't get stale for the song's entire running time. Basically, kudos Switzerland, you're kind of in the big leagues now. On the other hand though, I have seen some people vehemently opposed to this song, so we owe it to them to take into consideration the reasons as to why they may feel that way. Well, for one, I pulled Cyprus up on this, so it's only fair that I say it here too. In the context of this year's contest, it will inevitably draw comparisons to Replay as well as Fuego from last year, and in the wider context of the music industry, it will also be compared to the likes of Despacito, predominantly because this is yet another song with a reggaeton rhythm presented in the key of B minor. It's a ubiquitous stylistic choice at this point, so it kind of loses its identity with all the other songs that match up in the same way. So if you're not a fan, or even if you are, I wouldn't blame you for all of those songs beginning to run together in your head. A core trapping of that genre as well is, well, the refrain of the song is unnecessarily repetitive. It's not a huge offender in that department, mind you. There are songs from previous years that I could think of that are much more guilty of that, but at the same time, he sings the refrain twice in a row every time it comes up, and every time a song does that, I feel compelled to mention that if they had just written a second half that follows the same syllabic pattern, it would have so much more impact and so much more flavour. Just think of all that lyrical space in the song that's lost because they couldn't be bothered to flesh out the refrain a bit more. But perhaps I'm just obsessing a little bit too much over what could have been. Either way, what can't be disputed is that this song will need big energy for its delivery and its choreography on the night, and so immediately it becomes a very difficult, very complicated balancing act to make sure that Luca looks as fully engaged in that energy as possible, whilst also not draining his own reserves of energy so much so that it would impact his ability to perform at all, as we've seen happen so many times before on the Eurovision stage. Like, France 2014 is my go-to example for this. Energetic choreography can utterly ruin a singer's voice live, but by that same token, if he just stands completely stiff and still while his backing crew dance around him, that's gonna look weird too. Tread carefully, O Confederatio Helvetica. Right. Scores out of 10. Well, to an extent, I almost feel like my opinion of this song is going to be kind of held hostage by my reaction to Cyprus, given that the two are so similar, and in fact so similar that I had to actually retake the intro of this video because I accidentally called them Cyprus like twice. But yeah, so Cyprus has taken a bit of a... I'll give this song an 8 out of 10 on my personal scale. I enjoy it while it's on, and if they played it at a wedding, I would bust out some hairography on the dance floor. But it's not a genre that I would usually go out of my way to listen to on a regular basis. But then again, if it came on the radio, I wouldn't turn it off. It's still enjoyable. I won't skip past it on the CD this year, for instance. That said, I do still go back to Fuego every now and then, and I could see myself doing the same thing this year with both this and Replay. I don't hate the genre, and I don't hate this song. But of the two like this year, I prefer this since it has a bit more substance to it, and, in my opinion, much more narrative and much more integrity. Technically, meanwhile, I think another 8 out of 10 is in order. Basically, most of what I said about Cyprus counts for this song too. I'm not saying they're interchangeable, but just that it's something of a generic pop offering based wholly on a formula that brings the most success in the charts according to statistics filed by the record labels. What distinguishes this from Replay though, at least in my mind, is that, as I said before, it feels a lot less homogenous in form. You know, the lyrics actually tell a bit more of a story than just, I'm pretending to like you so you can pretend I'm your girlfriend, now have a dance break, or whatever, and that it's not trying to be a perfect identical clone of an existing song, it's just following in the footsteps of a certain style. As I said, it's got integrity in that regard, hence the slight bump up in numbers compared to a certain other song that I've mentioned too many times in this video already. But, at the end of the day, is this a good move for Switzerland as a whole? I mean, I guess so? While Sebolter did give the country a boost in optimism when he qualified in 2014, I get the feeling that the non-stop non-qualifications since haven't exactly been good for the Swiss psyche overall, especially when they send stuff as good as Stones and still end up missing the final. So they've taken a step to fix the situation by looking at what the common thread was between each failure to qualify in the interim. That is, Die Entscheidungsshow. by doing away with that and working directly with potential candidates, they're able to, as I said earlier, cut straight to the chase and immediately give us what might as well be a revamp, instead of scattergunning half-baked songs at us in January and hoping that the public can fill in the gaps in the meantime. In that regard, this hands-on approach is, yeah, an improvement. So, will this put an end to Switzerland's unlucky streak and get them back into the final? Because that is the goal here, I'd imagine. Based on the reactions from fans that I've seen so far, I'd go with a steady probably, but it's much less certain than Cyprus, because, as I said, this isn't trying to be a duplicate of a successful song, it's just trying to be of that same genre because that genre is popular. That could count in its favour by being relatively more original, or it could count against it by deviating too much from the exact thing that worked last year, or it could count against it for being of that genre in the first place, thus leading to accusations of it trying to copy that other song's successes or whatever. Still, I, for one, am actually cautiously optimistic for Luca's chances. But, as ever, I throw the question over to you lovely people. What do you think? Will this qualify for Switzerland? Will this break their unlucky streak? Do you think it's winner material? Let me know. Do you like the song? Do you not? Do you feel indifferent? Whatever you think, your opinions are valid just as long as you're not telling other people that their opinions aren't. As ever, comments, iCard, you know the drill by now. Let me know how you feel. Get in touch. I would love to hear from you. And in the meantime, to Luca and to Team Switzerland as a whole, I do wish you the very best of luck for when you set foot on the stage in May, because I feel like there's potential here, but I shouldn't give too much praise in case people accuse me of favoritism. Nevertheless, see you in Tel Aviv.